to give the viewpoint of Athabasca Sturgeon Redwater to this very important debate. In fact, I think this is a debate that you're going to be finding in Canadian federalism textbooks for many years hence. That's correct. And so I'm speaking mindful of that one day someone might be writing their dissertation based on part of what we're saying today. So we're speaking for the record, but of course we're also speaking for something that's of critical importance I think to all of our constituents. This is something that definitely I've heard loud and clear from the residents of the riding that I have the privilege to represent. And what's kind of unique about this is the level of consensus that I'm seeing from different, people, from farmers, from people, iron workers, from shopkeepers, and definitely from drivers, and the list goes on. And how many times I've had people come up to me and let me know just how much they appreciate our Premier standing up for Alberta and giving their best wishes to make sure that this happens. I could not but support this with such a level of concern and need for it. And so, why is this? Why do people see this as so important for Alberta? Well, I think that we're all aware that this has been a long-standing issue for our province. How to be able to develop deal with the discount that we're forced to take on bitumen. It's ebbed and flowed depending on global markets, but it's a problem that really hasn't resolved itself yet. And it's a problem that's only going to be getting worse with more and more American tight oil coming on stream. And so the old model of shipping our bitumen south is just not going to work for us anymore. Unless we're willing to take this sort of deep discount. And what does that deep discount mean? Well, of course, it moves the profitability factor for new fields, which means we're going to be slowing down a lot of investment. There'll be a lot of stranded resources up there, and of course, what does it mean for us as a province in terms of money to support our health care, money to support our schools, money to keep our roads intact, and on it goes. And so I guess I don't want to belabor that point. I think we're all in agreement with that. And what do we have to do here? Well, somehow or another, we need to get the BC government to wake up. They need to wake up to understand that actions have consequences, and that one of those consequences is that if you're going to work to saw off the branch of the tree that you yourself happen to be sitting on, that those consequences might end up being fairly drastic. I think that sometimes some of the politicians in BC are suffering from a point of view kind of similar to what George Orwell talks about in On the Road to Wigan Pier, which is a story that he wrote back in the interwar years, and talking about how a lot of British politicians, since that point, were very much hesitant in getting involved in Europe. And there was a very strong pacifist movement. And George Orwell had made this quip. He called it one-eyed pacifism. And one-eyed pacifism is the type of pacifism that a country can have when they have a really strong navy and they think that they're not going to be facing any negative consequences because of their action. And so I think that there are too many in BC that have sort of a one-eyed environmentalism, in the sense that they haven't really thought through what the consequences of their action have. They haven't really looked closely at this pipeline. They believed the first story that they got about it, and unfortunately some of these stories went out quite a long time ago. As one of the other members alluded, this isn't a new issue, and that was the story around that it's dirty oil and that Alberta's an irresponsible producer and we can't be trusted. And as a consequence, if they allow this expansion to go through, we're going to be poisoning their coastlines and probably laughing at it too. Right? I mean, that's just sort of the idea sort of in the background. And of course, that's fundamentally untrue. It's never been true, and even less so considering the robust climate action plan we put in place and all the other great work we've done to make Alberta even more a global leader in safe oil. And so sometimes people need to get a little reminder just to sort of help focus their thinking. And I think that it is time that assuming that the federal government, and I'll talk about that a bit later, doesn't step in in a big way, that we kind of give these people an idea that, yeah, actually you are still pretty heavily implicated in the resource economy, and that you are just as dependent on this resource as the rest of us. And I think that if we take some actions that way where they can see what the actual economic costs of decisions are, that they might look at those decisions a little more carefully. And I think when they do so, they will see that, as many of the members have brought up already this afternoon, that this is a very responsible project. In fact, there will be less risks involved for pollution than the status quo. Rail cars as a way to transport bitumen are definitely not the preferred way to do it. I've been recently reminded about that myself, in that just this past fall we had a derailment in Sturgeon County of some of these tanker cars, and it happened. Our airlines go pretty close to neighborhoods. I mean, there's a risk that's involved with that. And it's a type of risk that we wouldn't be facing had we had more pipeline capacity. And so that is definitely something that needs to be taken into account. And so I think that anything we can do to help people out there revisit their preconceptions and their misconceptions is all to the good. Now, do I think that this was the preferred way to go about things? Of course not. And I think it was totally legitimate that we worked so hard to dispel a lot of those misconceptions previously, and hard we did work. And I think we did win a lot of goodwill in BC. And I think in big parts of the community, we have changed the conversation. And there are responsible people across the country that have rethought our industry and are working in our favor. And I just want to go back for a moment to some of the comments that the member from Calgary Elbow made, where he criticized us for basically sitting on our hands and doing nothing in order to advance this project. I was a bit nonplussed by his statement because, of course, it's been very clear from the approval that if we hadn't actually put in a robust climate change plan, that we wouldn't have the approval in the first place, and we wouldn't even be having this discussion right now, because the project would have long been dead in the water. And so it's the actions that we've taken to date have brought us to where we are today, which is where we still have, I think, an excellent chance of getting this through. I'd say better than that, because I think we're going to make sure that this happens. And this wouldn't have happened without a lot of the work that we've done. And so I think that should be important to put on the record. And just speaking to relevance of the federal government, I think for the federal government, it's about more than a pipeline. It's about more than the share of the resource revenue that they're going to be getting by this going through. I think it speaks to their fundamental relevance as a national government. I mean, the point of federalism is that we do have a central power that is able to actually resolve these types of situations for us. Otherwise, confederation becomes pretty problematic. I mean, especially for a province like Alberta, where we're landlocked, and we desperately need to have access to coasts in order to succeed. And so,
Honourable Member for Carson Taber-Warner.
Madam Speaker, thank you for recognizing me and allowing me an opportunity